Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing today? My name is Scott Wilkinson. I'm a professional body piercer. And today what we're doing is we're going to go over a bunch of questions because people have issues with their piercings all the time. And I'm going to do my best to answer those for you. Now, if you're asking a question, make sure you're as thorough as possible because the better the question you ask, the better I can answer it for you. And over on the other side over here, we do have Jared.
Hey, everybody.
So say hi to Jared.
I will be reading your questions here. So we're going to go ahead and get started with Tendu Kinney, who is here very early.
Excellent. Thank you for being here.
Good question. How are you doing today, Scott?
I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good. We had a little microphone problems earlier, so I had to go get like a little wing nut thing. But I mean, other than that, we're pretty good. That's why we're just a couple minutes late. So sorry about that.
All right. Glad to see that Slim and Mommy are here. Kathy Clayton says hello again from Kat in Indiana.
Welcome in.
And a good question from Emily Sakuma. How long should I wait to downsize my cheek piercings at 6 weeks now?
It's really, really difficult with cheek piercings. Sometimes it takes months before you downsize. Even though the swelling might have gone down a little bit, they will fluctuate back and forth. And when you sleep at night, there's more blood flow to your head, so they do kind of swell up for then. Generally, I tell people probably a minimum of like 3 months, and you're probably not going to do a full downsize, just quite a bit. And then you're probably going to need to do another downsize after several months after that. I've heard of some people wearing the long one for almost up to a year before. So it really varies from person to person.
So it has a lot to do with just the fluctuation of swelling.
Yeah.
Do you have to hit it? Are you saying that like people would like hit it and it would act up and get thick again, or just in the natural course of healing?
Over the natural course of the healing, it just fluctuates back and forth as far as the swelling, the irritations. So that's kind of what you deal with. And once you've got that antenna sticking out for a while, then I would say downsize. But be careful about downsizing too soon,
because then it'll get pinched.
They'll get pinched.
All right. Next up, we have a question from Toilet Scrub. Wants to know, do you need a certain ear shape for an industrial piercing? That's a good question.
Absolutely do. For example, well, it depends on what you're looking for, because custom industrials can always happen where we can bend the bar. Now, for instance, like if you're looking at this ear here, not the best candidate because you can see how it's nice and flat here. There's not a natural ridge. And if we were to pierce the ridge, it's going to go from like out the back. So you'd have to kind of angle it to make this work. You can see how the front has a natural straight ridge where you go through, and that will work. Now, another thing to keep in mind is, like you can see, this person has the right ridge on both sides to get an industrial piercing, but this part here, the rook and like this anti-helix area, sometimes raises up high enough to where the bar would press against it. So you need to be free in this area and enough ridges. For example, like this ear here, where the ridge is much lower and then there's enough natural flaps to pierce. I hope that answers your question. It's a great question though.
Now, what happens if I don't have that shape ear, but a piercer says, hey, I can do it anyway, and they just do it? Like, what are the consequences?
So you do it in an ear like this, and you do the piercing, and that's going to fold your ear. As you can see how I'm folding it like that, doesn't look very natural. And what's going to happen is the ear wants to go back to the natural state, which is going to cause a massive bump to grow on the side of your ear. And you'll be like, I don't know why I can't get rid of this bump. It's because the piercing was done at the wrong angle. You don't have the right anatomy for it, and there's no way to get rid of it unless you bent the bar to match the angle of the piercing. So you got to have the right anatomy for this one.
An excellent question from Ant up next. Hey, Scott, I'm scared that if I get into a fight and I get punched on my eyebrow, then my eyebrow will be ripped open. What is your opinion on that?
That's a good one. I can guarantee you if you got punched in an eyebrow piercing, it's going to irritate it enough where you'll probably have a rejecting eyebrow piercing. Jared, you have more like MMA fighting experience. So would that rip open?
Yeah, especially if it was a glancing blow. Like if somebody swung in and it hit you like that, there's a good chance it could tear out. Almost any piercing is a serious detriment in a fight, for sure.
What about hitting straight on? Would it cause the skin, do you think, to split? Would that be enough? Because, I mean, the bar's not going to bend because it's generally titanium.
Yeah, I feel like the bar's not going anywhere. Your skull's not going anywhere. So what would have to get pinched and probably split would be your flesh in between. I would say in general, if you're doing martial arts or self-defense, most piercings are vulnerability of some sort. You know what I mean? If somebody grabs a hold of something or punches you in something, you are going to take worse damage than if it wasn't there.
So the best method is either plan ahead and take all your piercings out, or just try to get along with people.
That's a good point. Just peace.
Yeah.
Also head movement.
Head movement. Yeah. You can always dodge. There's a movie like Dodgeball.
Dodgeball. He mentions
Duck,
dodge
dive,
twice.
Ditch, dip, dodge, and I don't know.
And dodge. I mentioned that one twice because I like it.
Great show.
All right. So very cool, Ant. Hopefully.
It is a concern. Be careful.
Yeah.
Even if you put a retainer in there, even like a plastic or whatever, the bar behind it still could cause problems. So you don't want to have someone get hit in there. That would be bad news.
I actually, in a similar point, I have a labret piercing and I rarely wear it just because that is my concern is if I were to get punched, then that little short metal bar is basically in a straight line with my bottom teeth and is going to knock one of them straight out.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to be very careful about that.
All right. Emerald H says, hello. We're glad you're here.
Hi.
Tegan Scott says, my double helix is at a bad angle and it won't heal after 10 months. While my 3-month-old conch is even further healed. Can it be saved? So if you've got a problem piercing, is it?
Well, if you said it's at an angle, that's already going to be an issue. If it bothers you, it's not going to get better. Sometimes if it's enough of an angle, like if your ear's straight like this and it's not perpendicular and it's pierced at that angle, you're going through more tissue and the angles create strong and weak points, which generally cause those bumps to happen. I'm guessing you probably have bumps on your piercing. Sometimes cartilage piercings takes over a full year to heal. So that's a possibility. But if it seems like you have the bumps, they won't go away and it won't, maybe just start over if that's the case.
Maybe just get them redone at the correct angle, probably get a faster heal out of it.
Now, in defense of like the conch is inside the ear. It's more protected. They generally are easier to heal up, in my opinion, than a helix is. So the helix is tougher than the conch. And it doesn't surprise me that the conch healed up faster than that helix. But if it's not sitting right, it doesn't seem right. Yeah, you should probably,
Now, when you say something's going to take 12 months to heal, at the 10-month mark, would it seem mostly healed, or are you saying it would be problematic up until that 1 year mark?
It's not going to be problematic. You're going to be dealing with crusties.
Okay.
Now, the closer you get to the healed state, the less and less crusties you have. It's not like it's going to have a bump one day and you wake up the next morning and look, oh, it's gone. It's fully healed. It's going to take some time. The body's a fast healer, but it's not that fast. There's only so fast that the body can actually heal things.
And like you said before, your body's kind of complaining about the fact that you're trying to leave something in there and heal around it. So your body's extra upset versus if you just say got like a cut or a surgery that they just close back up.
And then keep this in mind with cartilage, we never remove tissue. We're making a crescent incision, pushing that tissue off to the side. So you're forcing something in a hard cartilage where it naturally wants to go back. It takes a long time for all of that tissue to calm down and relax. That's what we're hoping for. And if you have thicker cartilage, it might even take longer. So
It's at least 28 has been thinking about stretching my lobes, but I have no idea where to start. Any advice? So where do we get started if we just want to maybe get a little bigger?
It's actually a really, really easy start. Go through your jewelry collection if you have one at home, and you're going to notice that different earring studs, the kinds with like the butterfly backs, will be different thicknesses. There's no real standard as far as those types of earrings go. So you can find the thickest one and wear that. When you put it in, it might be tight for like a little bit and then it relaxes. Just leave those in. Now, another option is if you wear rings or hoops, you can stack your jewelry, which means if you have a couple thin hoops, put a couple thin hoops through there and wear that. Sometimes you're going to get hoops that have like a slightly thicker area and then the thinner area. Make sure it's of good quality and that it doesn't hurt when you do it, but wearing that thicker part is how you're going to go about this. Now, as far as the stretching goes, 6 to 8 weeks minimum between each jump in sizes. There's gauge charts all over the internet, but you're going to start probably around an 18 or a 16 gauge. Then a month and a half later, you go to the 14 gauge. Month and a half later, you go to the 12 gauge until you get up to the size you're looking for. Proper stretch really shouldn't hurt. And so you got to keep jewelry in there. You take it out, you lose those steps forward.
So now, like, with a proper shirt, are we saying, is this something that happens all at once? Like, do I put it in and it stretches all at once, or is it like a pair of pants where I wear it all day and then now it seems a little bigger than it was when I put it on this morning?
Exactly. The longer you wear it, like the more relaxed the skin gets. Like you're saying, the analogy of the jeans loosen up the longer you wear them. Now you got to keep those jeans on, because if you just keep washing them, they shrink back up to fit again. But if you keep wearing them and they're loose, then you put on the next pair of jeans, and then those loosen up, and then the next pair of jeans, and those loosen up. It's a real gradual thing like that.
Very cool. So begin your journey, Elise. April Rivera says, thank you for sharing all this. It gave me the courage to get the piercings I've wanted. I appreciate your hard work so much.
Well, thank you very much, and congratulations on your piercings. I'm glad we've been able to be a part of that journey for you.
So our next question has to do with allergies to metals, which is super common. A lot of people are concerned about this or have problems with this. And the question is from Sophia. It's, hey, I'm fully healed up and I'm looking for some hypoallergenic earrings. What suggestions do you have? So what metals are okay, what aren't?
Okay. I do want to do a video on this. I keep bumping the table. We got a new setup here.
Keep kicking my camera, man.
Messing it up. Okay. So hypoallergenic is a weird terminology when you're buying in the general market. Amazon, eBay, stores like Target, Walmart, all those places are going to claim hypoallergenic. Sometimes they're putting a coating over the top. Sometimes it's a certain grade of metal. Sometimes it's just saying that it doesn't have nickel in there, because nickel is the #1 culprit that most people are allergic to. They put nickel, the type of metal, in a lot of metals to get the color. Sometimes that's filler, but this is what people react to. A little fun test. You can always take like an older coin, a nickel, when it was pure nickel, like from the 70s, early 70s, and you put it right on the ditch of your arm. And if you just hold it there for a couple of minutes and you pull it away, if you have a red welt, you're probably allergic to that nickel. And that's the easiest way to tell. Now, as far as true hypoallergenic, you want to find a good, safe metal like titanium, as close to pure as possible. Most body jewelry these days is made out of that grade of titanium. And you could also use niobium. So a really weird term for a metal, but it's on the periodical table of elements. It's a pure metal. A lot of times we make rings out of it. So, and you can anodize it, which means you can color it. Then when you're dealing with gold, not all gold is full hypoallergenic, because white gold can have that nickel in there to get that white color. And 14 karat gold means it's roughly half gold and a whole bunch of other metals inside there. So if you don't know the other metals, that's the problem. I don't really think anyone's allergic to real gold, but 24 karat gold is too soft to work with, and it doesn't hold threads. It's going to miss shape. So that's why you find the different carats, like 18 or 14 karat.
That's one that I hear a lot. I hear people who have the belief that they can only wear gold because they've had problems with, say, like some steel in the past, and then they put in some gold and that didn't give them problems. So now they think they have to wear gold.
Well, I mean, like even surgical stainless steel has that nickel in there. And like I said, some of the gold, like you were saying, can be in there. So you can have better luck with gold, but there's no guarantee.
It's not like gold's magically non-allergenic. It could easily have that nickel in there too. Correct. So you said titanium. So that's going to be something I can get that's pure, and nobody should really be allergic to that. That's what they
generally. I mean, I've met one person one time, like 20 years ago. I said, "You're going to wear titanium, you'll be fine." And I said, "No one's allergic to that." And I said, my doctor said I was, and they showed him the test, and it actually was. So it is a possibility, but I think the numbers and chances are rare. So low and so rare that titanium's a pretty,
because that's what medical implants are made out of. If you have like a screw or a plate in you, that it's made of titanium.
It's the same grade of metal that we're using now. Yeah.
Very cool.
Implant grade titanium.
So some nice nerdy discussions there, Sophia, but hopefully that opens up your options. You realize that you have a lot of cool options. Anything made of titanium should be just fine. And gold, like Scott was saying, is kind of a crapshoot. You're not really sure if it's clean or not.
And another thing I want to say too is a lot of times if you go into malls and you're going to find these crazy painted pieces of jewelry, it might work for a little bit, but as soon as that painting, coating, whatever flakes off, the metal underneath is generally the most inferior metal you can wear, and you will definitely have problems with it. So painted, plated jewelry sometimes is kind of scary too, because you don't know what's underneath unless they tell you.
And the little flakes are going to end up to some extent in your piercing. You know what I mean? As it starts to flake off and you pull it through, you're getting junk inside your body that does not belong.
And you're trying to wear a smooth surface. Now there's different layers. It's not smooth anymore.
All right. So your mom is so sexy says, "Hey, Scott, I'm thinking of getting a helix piercing done. but I'm scared. Do you have any advice? How do we deal with fear of an upcoming piercing?
Face it head on. That's the best thing to do. I always say surrender to the experience. Find someone you're comfortable with. Bring a good support team. It hurts a little bit. Yes, you're right. And is it worth being really scared about? No, not at all. But is it possible for me to take that fear away from someone getting pierced? No, that's impossible too. It's always there. But that's the best part about getting pierced. That feeling of accomplishment when you overcome that fear.
All right. So that's kind of part of it.
It's part of it. I even get scared every time I get pierced. The butterflies are littler and littler each time I do it, but it still is a slightly scary thing. Very few people have zero fear. They claim they have, but it's really hard to find those people. Yeah.
Will Jones says, a week from now, I'm starting my 2-week work experience at a tattoo and piercing shop, and I'm super excited. P.S. My teacher said she will kill me if I come back with a tattoo. Is that a thing that happens? Like you go work at a tattoo and piercing shop, you end up with tattoos and piercings?
Yeah.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is like, I never used to like eyebrow piercings. I didn't care for them. But I mean, I started doing them and then I started like, yeah, it kind of grows on you. Same thing with tattoos. You get the right moment, the right thing. Like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know and you see it and it becomes the norm and you want to become part of the norm that way. And some people try to shoot outside the box and do weird stuff, but some people also want to belong. So there's both sides of the spectrum. So if you're working in a tattoo shop, you're going to get something probably. You're gonna get something.
Don't make your teacher too mad though, Will. Ursula's Odds and Sods says, I want to support small businesses making body jewelry, but most of them only use steel in their metal jewelry. Is it safe for short periods as long as it's internally threaded or threadless? Is steel okay, or have we decided that it's bad?
I say it's okay, with a big disclaimer on there. There's implant grade steel and there's just steel. The best analogy I can give for this is bread. Not all bread you make for sandwiches is going to be the same. Sourdough, pumpernickel, what if it was like a cinnamon swirl type? I don't know. They all are different, but they're all under the category of bread. Steel is the same way. There's different grades of steel and you need the right grade of steel that's nickel free, the highest polish in order for it to work. If you do that and you don't have nickel allergies, I think steel is okay. But most of our industry is going towards the implant grade titanium as far as the higher end shops or the higher end jewelry manufacturers.
But like Ursula is saying, like if you want to support the small businesses, they're probably still working in steel because it's a lot easier to machine. Like the machining tools to do titanium are more expensive.
It is. You just need to be careful because
I would think that
titanium's really not that much more.
Right. Well, I mean, not more expensive for the stock, but I think it takes different cutting tools and things to turn titanium versus turning steel.
No, but that's what I'm saying is if you order a titanium internally threaded barbell or a surgical steel titanium or a surgical steel internally threaded barbell, there's not a huge price difference.
I understand that. I think what Ursula wants to do is support the small business that can't afford the titanium lathe. So they're still only making in, you know what I mean? Like if I were to buy.
Are you talking jewelry manufacturers or piercing studios?
I think small jewelry manufacturers we're talking about. Not just small, but people who are local who are making jewelry, but they only make it out of steel. You think that maybe speak to them about their sources?
Speak to them. Make sure you get like mil spec sheets and things like that, that it's actually a proper steel because anyone can just order random stuff online and start making it. You want to look for legit companies that have a good background because I've seen so many things on Etsy and Amazon that claim to be certain metals and they're not. So that's where you need to be careful if you're not going with a company with a reputation like that. I agree with you. I love supporting the small companies, but you got to make sure they're safe about it and they're following the same rules as everyone else.
Very cool. Yeah. So yes, so if it is actually proper stainless steel, surgical stainless, no problem with wearing that, even on a medium term basis. It's not like it's harmful.
Correct.
All right. So the little piece of misinformation that I think people
you see kind of both sides of the story there then too. I mean, if you're a shop and you only carry steel, you should have some titanium because it's not that much more to get if you're getting from these companies.
And the one thing you've said that really is that it can be lighter, that on a larger gauge thing, sometimes steel's too heavy.
Absolutely.
And you want to get thicker, but you can't afford the weight.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Slim says hi from South Africa.
Hey, Slim.
It's sort of an extension of the last question. Is titanium jewelry the best jewelry to heal new piercings with, or are there other options that are just as good? I'm looking to get my nipples pierced soon.
I would say titanium's probably the optimum one go-to that you should start off with. It's lightweight. If it's a high polish, it works really, really well. Is it the best ever? I don't know if it's the best ever because there's many different grades of implant level jewelry, but most of the manufacturers only use certain ones because there's a lot more research and it costs money. But that's getting on the deep side of it. But for the most part, yeah, titanium, implant grade titanium is going to be the best to start off with. Gold sure is pretty, but titanium, the lightweight, does help.
Yeah, because we were talking about just the weight issue. Gold's even heavier.
And combine them. Wear a titanium bar through the outside surface and the showing surface, have that as a gold bead.
So you got like a gold bead.
So
on
a mixed
titanium
combination. Because I mean, just a curved eyebrow for my solid gold was way too much weight and caused problems until I put titanium in.
Interesting. It doesn't show anyway, so it doesn't matter. You might as well have what your body agrees with better. Isan Hussein says, hey, Scott, thanks a lot for the videos. I currently have an Ampelang and a PA. What other piercings would you recommend to get? I want to cover a bit more space and was thinking a lorem or a hafada. You want to do a little quick lesson here and tell what are we talking about? What's an Ampelang? What's a PA?
Most of these are going to be penis piercings. An Ampelang is horizontal through the head. A Prince Albert goes in the urethra, out the bottom of the head. He's also talking about a lorem, which is where the shaft meets the scrotum on the bottom of the penis there, and it's just normally a curved barbell or a ring, really kind of a cool piercing. Or hafadas, which traditional hafadas are both sides of the side of the scrotum, but realistically, it can be anywhere on the scrotum itself. So PA in front of
PA and an Ampelang.
PA and Ampelang. Yeah, I think a lorem would be pretty cool, or even just a centrally placed scrotum piercing might be kind of fun too. So you have a lot of options there.
Right. Yeah. So that would have to be a whole different type of what should I get pierced?
Yeah. I don't know if we could really pull it off with you.
No, I mean, I don't want to go through all the pictures, to be honest. Mommy says, I had my conch pierced about 7 months ago and I still get crusties. No blood or swelling. I've yet to change the bar to something smaller. Is that perhaps the problem? Could that be the cause of the crusties?
Which piercing was this?
This is a conch piercing that's 7 months old.
Yeah. If the bar is way too long and it's moving back and forth, that's causing irritation, and that would be causing the crusties to happen. If you got a more snug bar, it will probably help that out quite a bit. Also, it could be the quality of metal, it could be the polish. If you are sleeping on it every night, if you're still wearing masks and the mask band is rubbing up against it, all these things are irritants that can cause more problems. But downsizing probably is something you want to look into. And hopefully you're only using the wound wash spray to clean your piercing. Other chemicals can be kind of harsh and prolong the healing process.
Kind of make your body act up and make those crusties. Zoe Gore wants to know if a titanium ear stretching kit with single flares is a good choice for gauging my ears. So these are probably kits that they sell that are going to have all the steps in between with single flares?
For sure. Great question. Well, spoiler here, I did go out recently and buy a bunch of Amazon piercing kits. So those reviews will be coming out very, very shortly. But I didn't buy any Amazon titanium stretching kits. I am really curious. If you found a kit of titanium single flares, where did you get it? Let me know. I'll order it and I'll check it out for you. Okay.
Very cool, Zogor.
Yeah, it could be cool. Remember, take your time. Nice gradual stretching. Titanium's great to stretch with. Yeah.
A question on the jewelry subject from Emerald H wants to know where to find a good large size, like between a 4 gauge or a 6 gauge septum jewelry. Emerald is having trouble finding a segment ring at that size.
Oh yeah, for sure. That is a really, really good question. Segment rings or hinge rings. I think Invictus makes clickers in 4 gauge, which would be big enough, but I'm not sure if the diameter is going to be small enough. The thicker the metal gets, the tougher it is to bend that ring because a lot of times they're bent. I don't think they're necessarily cast into that position.
No, they're definitely not cast. They're bent.
Yeah, so they're bent. So bending titanium with that thickness into that tight of a ring is almost impossible. I would love to do a video someday if I find a jewelry manufacturer who makes rings to show me how they do it.
I know Because the tightness of the ring and the thickness of the metal matter. And I was looking into chainmail. And that matters a lot. You can only bend a certain thickness to a certain tightness because it changes the amount of space in the middle.
Yeah. So that's why you don't find a lot of people making large gauge rings anymore out of titanium. So, I mean, imagine, I think the bar probably has to be like 10 or 15 feet long. You start in one small spot, you put it, and you got to wrap it around basically, the diameter spool of so if you want a 3/8 inch diameter, you have that little 3/8 and you have this bar trying to wrap around it. How do you not bend it? How do you bend all that bar? It's tough to do.
So that's why it's tough to find.
That's why it's tough to find. Sometimes you might be able to find better glass options, organic options. You might need to look in steel because steel's a little easier to work with than titanium.
The glass is nice because that is easier to bend and cast in a shape like that.
Trying to think of any other options for you. That's why it's easier to find circular barbells than actual.
So check Invictus.
Yeah.
You'd need to be a body piercer to purchase it. So you'd have to go to a local shop and have them purchase it.
I don't order from this company anymore, but there was this company back in the day called Wildcat. I think they still exist. And they used to make these segment rings with like little Allen wrench screws that you could screw the piece into. And they were kind of cool. It's been 10, 15 years since but I think they still exist. So maybe start doing some searches.
Give that a shot.
Good luck to you. If you find something, let us know because they're not easy to find.
So a question from characters that I cannot read or pronounce says, should I get a doth piercing or a conch first? Which is the more beginner-friendly piercing to heal?
I think in general, the conch is a little bit easier one to heal. If you have to wear any sort of stethoscopes, earbuds, things that go inside your ear, the conch is easier to deal with. At the same time, it's sometimes a little easier to sleep on a doth piercing if nothing's going in your ear because there's nothing poking on the back. So they're both pretty similar. I think the conch is slightly faster and a little easier to get though.
Leela Vanderhut says, I am a musician and I need to be able to wear earplugs. Are there any ear piercings that can get in the way of that? I'm thinking about a doth or a tragus. Those are probably the worst choices.
The tragus isn't the worst. Now, the thing is you would need to fully heal it up before you could wear those earplugs. So you might need to do like over the ear ones until you're healed up. Then you can shorten up your post in your tragus because you have to have long to accommodate any swelling. But once you get it nice and snug, you still might be able to get some sort of earphones, earbuds in there. There's no guarantee. But if you distort that tissue during the healing process, you're going to have bumps. It's going to hurt the ear. It's just not going to work. So,
and a doth's basically a no-go, right?
Doth is almost always a no-go unless you're wearing over-the-ear protection that way.
So what can Leela get? You've frowned on all of our dreams. We can't get the piercings we want. What's okay that's not going to mess with my earplugs?
All the rest?
Basically everything else. So anything on the rim, outer rim of your ear, like your helixes,
depending
your
on
flat.
how deep a conch piercing would go, that could get in the way. It also depends on how big your earplugs are that you're putting in your ear. Generally, they're pretty small and don't take up too much space. But if the earbud or ear plug basically touches the piercing, it's going to cause problems. Unless the tragus is fully healed and you're able to work it.
All right.
Sorry.
I have no eyeballs. Just got their 25th piercing recently. So congratulations there.
Congratulations for sure. 25. That's quite a few.
Mommy making fun of me, thinking I'm going to get into a fight. Well, it's true. And in my own defense, just because it's not like, in case I get into a fight, I got to be ready. Because I realize it does sound dumb. Yeah. I, for several years, was a street performer on Fremont Street. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you can get punched in the face down there, and that can just happen. You know what I mean?
It can. Yeah, but you've also heard of the people like, here, hold my earrings. You're taking things out beforehand. It's like, if you got a second, do what you can do. I've also had like people say things about like nostril jewelry, like the threadless stuff. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you need tools to get that stuff out. Some people want that little nostril L. Like, I want to be able to take it out in a quick, take it out so it doesn't,
Some of us live a different reality than others and occasionally get into fights with strangers.
I've never really been in a fight. So, I mean, I've never had that concern, but all it takes is getting hit in the face one time, doesn't it?
Right. And I mean, I trained jujitsu for the last 10 years. So, I mean, even in friendly martial arts practice, you get walloped. You get hit hard sometimes. And, you just realize that that's not something you can afford. All right. Braden Kenyon says, I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. What are your favorite holiday foods, Scott?
Holiday foods. I mean, the whole Thanksgiving meal is my favorite, from the turkey to the mashed potatoes. I got lucky. I went back and I spent some time with my family. Haven't seen them in like 10 years. That whole extended side of the family. It was really, really fun. A ton of food. Favorite foods. Yeah. Oh, I love pumpkin pie. It's just another form of cake, liquid cake, I think is what Jim Gaffigan says. So, yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same way. Just enjoy the whole meal, like the turkey and especially the cranberry sauce. I feel like that's something you don't get most times of the year. We just forget cranberry sauce exists. And then this one time of the year, you remember that it's good and should be on your plate.
Absolutely.
All right.
I mean, I'm like every time I go to a restaurant that has a full Thanksgiving meal or turkey dinner,
like a turkey dinner,
I have to get it.
I have to get that.
It's one of my favorite meals.
It's filling. There's no denying that home cooked goodness. All right.
We had smoked turkey. I love smoked turkey so much. That compared to just a regular turkey, just a flavor in there, it's pretty good. I imagine you could overdo it fairly well, though, fairly easily.
An interesting success story from here. Idalia wanted to mention that they've had issues with piercing bumps no matter what, but switched from H2 Ocean over to the NeilMed, since you were recommending NeilMed.
Yeah.
And has found that it made a huge difference, that the bumps are now starting to go away.
That's pretty awesome.
With just a different spray.
It works for a lot of people at H2 Ocean, but there's a whole bunch of other enzymes and chemicals, things in there that are supposed to promote healing. But as we know, people have different allergies and reactions to different things like that. So it's not going to work for everyone. One thing I like about the NeilMed is it's pure saline. There's nothing else. It's sterile saline, and it's just letting your body do its own thing. Our bodies work pretty well. They really do.
You don't need to interfere too much, really.
You need to let it do its job.
All right.
Laura, that worked out for you. That's really awesome.
Yeah, that's actually cool. It's not something I would even think to recommend.
No.
You know what I mean? That I wouldn't think that the spray was causing the problem, but it's another thing to keep in mind. It could be.
Yeah.
Laura says, hi, Scott. I have an upper lobe piercing and the conch area. Sorry. I have an upper lobe piercing and the conch area at the back of it is swollen still after 5 months. And if I poke the swelling, some thick blood comes out. Ooh. It isn't on the piercing or a bump, though.
Okay. Sometimes when you go higher lobe, it gets closer to the conch. And if you have any sort of a flat disc on the back of your ear, if it's pressing up against there, that can cause an extra irritation bump. And sometimes you need to get a smaller disc, maybe change to a ring, but see how the jewelry is resting or touching that area in the back. So if you could have someone take your camera phone and see if they can take a picture, don't pull your ear out and take a picture in its natural position and see if that is the case, because that's probably it. The higher lobe piercings are also a little bit more prone and problematic to like just general issues. I'm not sure why, but it does happen. But that's one of the most common things. If you have a higher bump and it bleeds, it's because it's constantly rubbing. And maybe it's when you're sleeping on it. Maybe that thing is rubbing right up against there. So maybe adjust or find different jewelry that works better. Maybe have a bead instead of a disc or vice versa. Maybe you need to shorten it up or make it a little longer.
Make some kind of little change.
It's probably a jewelry issue at this point. Yeah.
Will Jones has had a conch piercing for 2 months now, and it's still quite swollen. Would you say that that's normal for a conch?
Absolutely. I mean, ultimate perfect circumstances, you don't want it to really be swollen, but sometimes cartilage stays swollen for months and months and months. Now, again, if you're sleeping on it, you're wearing masks and they're pressing up against it, or it's getting bumped and hit all the time, it's going to stay swollen. Hopefully you're only using the wound wash spray, keeping the crusties off there, and yeah, that should do it for you. But yeah, they do stay swollen a while.
Trash Mammal says, no question, just stopped by to appreciate the aesthetically pleasing men who can read. Thank you, Trash Mammal. Makes it feel good. Yes, I appreciate that.
Glad you're here.
Bruh, your FR says, is it normal to have some white stuff still sometimes around my tongue piercing? I've had it pierced for 2 years now, and sometimes I still notice a little bit of white around the piercing hole. We hear this a lot.
Yes, this is a big concern. Tongues are a little bit different than a lot of piercings. Sometimes you can see the same thing with lip, but that's the fistula I always talk about. A lot of times you can't actually see it, but I imagine if you stick your tongue out and kind of press it against your teeth like this, you'll be able to see that white ring because you're pushing a lot of the muscle tissue back, and that tubus scar tissue that's what you're seeing. It's
okay. So it's just because of the shape of your tongue, it's kind of peeking out.
correct. You can push that tube. It slides back and forth. Sometimes when you feel your ear, you feel that bump of where the piercing is. You're feeling that fistula, but it's real hard to get it to kind of come to the surface. You see it with lip piercings and a lot with tongue piercings. So totally normal.
And it's nothing weird even. It's just a normal thing.
It's what's keeping your piercing from getting infected. That's the tube from preventing germs to get inside there into the bloodstream.
So nothing to worry about, bruh. Totally normal.
Yep.
All right. We have, of course, I lose my place all the time.
Hey, if you guys haven't subscribed already, hit that subscribe button. It's really helps. And definitely hit the like so other people know about this. The more you hit the like, the better it is for us.
That's true. We love that like button.
Yes.
Monica Ewa Peterson says, hi, Scott and Jared. Nice to see you again. We're glad you're here. Thank you for showing, Monica.
Yes.
Sarah Scott wants to know, how do I make my ears stop stretching? So it's the opposite issue of what many people have. But so explain what's going on here. What do you mean?
Okay. Some people try to stretch real hard and they have a really tough time getting to the next size. Some people have just more naturally stretchy ears and they just go right up. I used to work with a girl who got up to like 1 inch after several months. And I was like, slow down. But I remember stretching her ears, and the next day she would kind of go like this, and the flare, she could get the flare just to go right through, or the O-ring fall. She just stretched that fast. So you need to focus on wearing lighter jewelry. Maybe find something like silicone plugs to sleep in, or sometimes don't sleep in the plugs at all. At this point, it's like if they're naturally stretching, see if you can sleep in without them one night. And then when you shower in the morning or hot water, you can try to semi-restretch them back open. Once you get to larger sizes, sometimes you can get away with it, sometimes you can't. So you kind of got to play around with it a little bit. But if you're wearing weights all the time, really big, heavy stone jewelry, it's just going to kind of keep naturally
even
stretching.
Steel jewelry, just lighten that up a little bit, perhaps.
So that's why I like the silicone jewelry with larger sizes, just because there's no weight to it, no weight at all. So, and yeah, that's the best I can tell you. Some people just naturally stretch,
and it gets difficult to stop. Rebecca B wants to know, how often do you perform a nipple piercing in the diagonal placement? Is this typically only when a client wants to do double piercings in an X shape, or do you do it that way?
No, I get requests for it all the time. When people come into my piercing room, I think most people don't understand it's an option. Most people think you just get your nipples pierced. And people come back and I'm like, okay, are you interested in vertical, the side to side, slight angle, or no, let me rephrase that. When they come in, I don't ask them all those things. That's what I should probably say. I ask them if they want traditional or if they want any sort of angle. And
okay. And sometimes you get like, what does that mean?
Yeah. And slight angle in, sometimes it's full 45, sometimes it's a little bit more. It depends on the overall thing, what you're going for. If you wanted that X look, yeah, you got to let us know right away and we'll kind of accommodate for it. But a slight angle down is kind of fun. Now, the more angle down you go, if you ever wanted to wear rings, keep in mind the rings are going to go out. They're not going to hang down. So that kind of looks a little different. But a slight angle, you can still get away with those rings too.
So if you had to put a percentage on it and say like the last 5 years, what percentage of nipple piercings are done dead horizontal versus with some angle?
For me, I would say maybe 5%. It's pretty low.
So 5% are normal, traditional horizontal ones?
No, they want the angle.
Almost everybody wants the angle.
The normal horizontal.
Okay.
And once in a while, 5% people want an angle or this.
So it's kind of rare, actually, for people to go off.
The most rare is vertical nipple piercings.
People just don't ask for them?
I just don't. I've never had anyone really ask for them unless they already have horizontal and they want to do the ones behind it. So you kind of have like the little cross thing going on.
But there'd be nothing stopping a person from just getting them vertical.
Not at all. I will say, like when I had mine double pierced, taking shirts off, like vertical nipple piercings, they grab the beads and yank up on it. That's not fun. Yeah. If you could have seen Jared, he kind of, it's not fun. So that's the downfall of the vertical nipple piercings, but most people get horizontal. A small percentage will get the angled, and it's pretty rare to get the actual full vertical.
Our next question is Tegan Scott plays basketball and currently uses medical tape to tape the piercings down. Mm-hmm. Is there a better way to protect them until you can just remove them, like until they're healed up and it's okay to pull them out? And is it then okay to pull them out?
Yeah.
Like you just take them out twice a week for basketball?
Really, really quick. I think probably not. It's a weird one, but they sell these like silicone like nipple covers. I think that kind of go over and kind of stick, so you're not going to have the sticky adhesive on there, and that might be enough to kind of help protect it, as opposed to putting the full-on medical tape, which the adhesive can stick to your piercing and kind of pull on it. So,
and you're saying that's on any piercing, you would use that silicone thing?
Mainly for nipples, because they're concave and they're made to go like on a nipple, breast, a chest.
What about other piercings? What about eyebrow piercings and facial piercings that we're like sticking tape over right now just to kind of...
It's tough. They do to hide it, or is it just
to protect it?
Yeah.
I think is the idea, to protect it during the game so it doesn't get hooked.
I don't really have a good answer. They do make some silicone flexible retainers, which is a better option than having the metal in there. Maybe a Band-Aid. Yeah. The sticky adhesive and like sticking on there is the problem. So you try not to get it to stick when you're pulling it off, so you don't. Yeah, so it's a tough question.
It's just really difficult to do piercings and any kind of a sport or high impact activity. They are tough to mix
well at all. They really, really don't. Most retainers are made for like medical procedures, for hiding things, for a temporary thing. Not hiding, but like you can't have metal in the MRI or the X-ray. So you put plastic or silicone. But I mean, even if you put plastic or silicone and you got hit in that spot, that still can cause massive amount of damage. So you just kind of got to eventually hope that it would stay open, take it out, and put it back in. I don't have the best answer. Sorry.
That's a good answer, though. Yeah. I mean, sometimes there isn't an answer.
There isn't, and that's the problem. I wish I had one.
Ursula just put their first double flare plug in at a 0 gauge ear today.
Nice.
The slow ears at a 2.
Okay.
Is it safe to sleep in the double flares, or is there a reason to switch back to the single flare before bed?
No, the double flares are probably going to be much more comfortable for you, because generally double flares are shorter wearing surface, because for a single flare, for the plug to come all the way out, there has to be room for that rubber band or O-ring to go on the back. Now with the double flares, it's just the wearing surface. So it is going to be more comfortable for you, or should be anyways.
Luna de Blue says, hi, my question is, I want to pierce my eyebrow to have a double eyebrow on the same side. The first piercing was downsized 2 months ago. Should the first piercing have to be upsized to a longer bar? So when we go and get the next piercing, is it going to irritate the old one and make it need a larger bar again?
I think a lot of piercers have a lot of different opinions on this one. Me personally, I don't give much extra room at all for eyebrow piercings to accommodate room for swelling. The tissue's soft enough, and I really haven't seen any of the beads or have go into the skin, or people have issues. So you should be fine keeping that one in my opinion. But also keep in mind, if you have that longer bar, have it ready in case you do need to switch, because if you do overswell and the beads are getting sucked in, then you want that longer bar. But I mean, I've been piercing since 1994. Most of the time, you don't see much bar on an eyebrow piercing when I do it.
So in that case, you wouldn't think that probably it would need it. You just get your second eyebrow piercing and it's not.
Correct. Good. Some people naturally just swell a lot more. If they tell me this, I'll accommodate room for them. But I've never really had too many issues with the eyebrows over swelling.
Similar to what we touched on earlier, Vicious 4 says, as a martial artist who wants piercings, any suggestions on how to heal them while still being in the gym?
You're really limited on what you can get. Tongue piercings, web piercings, like underneath your tongue, might be a good option for you. If you're wearing ear protection, there's certain inner ear cartilage ones you could possibly wear, but as soon as you take it off and that got hit, it's going to be really, really upset.
Right. Anything that would be covered by like wrestling headgear, like you were saying, your inner ear.
A septum piercing, I know they make silicone retainers. I don't know how that would be, if that would have enough room, if you got bumped, if that would be a problem. But you're kind of limited.
It's just tough. It's just tough because part of martial arts, depending on the martial art you're doing, I know stuff like jiu-jitsu, you'd never get away with nipple piercings or really most of the ear piercings or nose because you just
Navel,
those things
eyebrow,
get grounded
all of
on.
them.
Yeah.
Any sort of oral piercing on the outside, you get bopped in the mouth, and
I could see if you were doing a karate that didn't involve facial contact.
Yeah,
I mean, or maybe some sort of a taekwondo where you could wear headgear during contacts. Times you might get away with it, but it's going to be tough, Vicious.
One of the more common things I tell people is piercings is about timing. Find the right time in life that the piercing works for you. If you're doing combat once a year, you're hopping in the ring, otherwise you're wearing full headgear and whatnot, take the piercing out, go to your piercer when you're done, see if you can stretch it back open. Might be a little upset for a couple days or a couple weeks, but if it's only once a year and you had a full year to heal it, it's not
that big a deal.
If you're taking it out every month or you're in every week, you're training and you're in full combat, you can't get piercings.
And realistically, if you're training for fights, you're in that gym 3 times a week or more, or you're not doing it right. So it would be very difficult to take it out almost every day.
Yeah.
You know? Rebecca B wants to know if you can get a tongue web piercing if you already have a midline tongue piercing, or is there any, would they hook together or look weird or anything like that?
No, you can totally get it. I get it pierced with a curved barbell. It'll work much better than a ring because if you have a normal tongue piercing, it's going to get caught in there and it gets really awkward. So curved barbell will work better. Yeah, it's totally fine.
So what do you do if you've got allergies all year long, basically, and you want a nose or a septum piercing? Like, what are your recommendations there?
I generally say try to find the right time and the best time to do it. You still can heal these up. It's just going to be a little bit more of a chance of bumps, irritation, and a longer healing process. Normal nostril piercings are going to be healed up in 6 to 8 weeks without too many issues. It might be just a couple months, and you might have some more redness for a while longer. Sometimes if the bumps get big enough, you need to retire them and take them out, and you might have to start over. But find the best time to do it. There's got to be a time where there's a little bit less irritation.
Mommy wants to know, what's the big deal about piercing an industrial piercing with the same needle? I've heard that it's unsafe. Is that true?
Well, if it's a group of people and they're all getting industrials, that's a bad idea because you don't want to share needles. Is it unsafe to you? No.
That's what they're saying.
I was just talking to my other piercer I just hired all about reusing needles, reusing tapers on the same person. You're not going to get a disease from that other person. It's not going to be fully, it's just been through a sterile procedure. So I can't imagine it ever causing problems.
So when you pierce an industrial, does the same needle go through both sides?
I don't, for a completely different reason. The needle gets dull after a single use. And I find myself pushing harder the second time, which means I'm causing more trauma and more pain. You want the sharpest needle possible every single time. So that's why I use a separate needle for each individual piercings. Even earlobes. If you want an earlobe here and an earlobe here, you're not going to get a disease. You're not going to have extra problems other than it's going to hurt more because it's a dull needle.
Okay, so it's not really a safety issue. It's a comfort issue that you're taking care of your
That's my opinion. I know there's a lot of piercers who go back and forth and say you can't reuse these things. You can't. I don't see how it could possibly cause a problem. I mean, I'm human. I could be wrong.
Right.
But I've had many discussions.
With proper skin prep. Yeah. The only thing you could possibly imagine is if it got contaminated on the first time through with something on your skin, and then introduced it on the other side. But if you prep the skin surface, that shouldn't be an issue.
Now let's look at the big picture. Your pants or your clothes are going to be touching it 3 seconds later anyways.
Right. So
it's only been, I don't know. It's not staying a sterile field. It's not, just keep it as clean as you can.
It's all you can really do.
But is it dangerous? No.
Would you say a vertical labret is prone to rejection? And then kind of more of an opinion side, do you think a vertical labret is a job stopper?
It wouldn't be a job stopper here at Piercing Vegas, I can tell you that. Depends on where you go. Bigger corporate places generally have more of a problem with piercings than smaller businesses. Also right now, most of society, we're having a tough time hiring people. So it's pretty rare to find someone who won't hire you because of a piercing, unless it's a major corporation that have a bunch of rules and things set in place.
Mm-hmm. Right now, if you're a good worker, people probably won't care.
Now, can I reject? For sure. It's a very anatomy dependent piercing, and I will turn people down if they don't have a natural kind of pouty lip. If it's completely flat there's no ridge to grab a hold of, it's going to reject out and you could have a really nasty scar. So keep that in mind. Make sure you have enough of a pout to actually pierce.
Kira wants to know, how soon can you get a piercing after giving birth? Is it true that you have to wait at least 3 months?
Okay, there's a couple factors here. Number one is if you're going to be nursing. If you're breastfeeding or nursing, generally what I've been told is a minimum of 6 months before you get pierced, because if there was any sort of infection or problem, it could be brought through the milk to the child, and the child needs to be strong enough to fight off any sort of issue that way in the milk. Okay. I've been told 6 months is the minimum time you should wait before you get pierced if you're nursing. Now, if you're not planning on nursing, I would say the 2 to 3 month range is probably pretty accurate. It's difficult to heal piercings without a lot of problems because your hormones in your body are changing a lot and your body's changing and making adaptations
and healing. You've got trauma and damage that
Correct.
is now actually have to heal, the same as like a piercing.
So, I think the earliest I would possibly do would be a month, but I would say talk to your doctor about it and see when the safest would be. But yeah, 2 to 3 months is probably a more accurate time.
Forrest Hirsch wants to know if silicone tunnels are safe to wear for long periods of time in your large piercings.
Okay. I'm going to say in general, yes, as long as you're taking them out and cleaning them. But I do want to go back to the last question about the whole, the pregnancy and getting pierced. You can stretch a piercing back open if the piercing's still open. If you're trying to save piercings and you took them out because of pregnancy, you can go back and talk to your piercer and see if they can save it. But new piercings, you might need to wait. But if you wait too long, sometimes you can't stretch the piercing back open.
Okay.
So you know what I'm saying? It's like if you're trying to get old piercings back, see if they're still open. Maybe in a hot shower, see if you can kind of stretch them. But if you're looking for brand new piercings.
Now, again, it's kind of an aside, but do you think the stretching open of a new piercing, does that create the same problem with infection and nursing?
No, you shouldn't be breaking open the skin at all. Okay. When you're stretching the skin, it's still that fistula. It's a little bit tighter. It's like put on the tight pair of jeans and it's loose and comfortable a couple hours later.
Back up. Elias Larson, happy to be here for Alive, and we are happy you are here also.
Welcome. Yeah.
EACWTC97 says, my helix piercing is 3 months old. It never seemed to ooze or have any kind of crusties, but in the last few days, it's been a tad sore. No redness, no bleeding, no oozing. Should I be worried, or is this just a part of the healing?
Piercings can act up out of nowhere. You sleep on it the wrong way. The jewelry got kind of contorted that way. Sometimes if you're getting sick, cold, flu, season changes, piercings can also act up. Can also act up if you've had a change in routine. Different shampoos, conditioners, soaps, laundry detergents, fabric softeners, all these things have factors. Should you be worried? Not yet. If it starts getting worse and worse and worse, figure out what's going on, and that's when you need to kind of address it. But chances are you'll go back to normal before you know it. Just continue cleaning your piercing.
Will says, I'm going to start stretching my septum soon by my piercer. I tried to do it myself before, but my piercing is touching the cartilage, so it hurt too much for me to do it myself.
Okay.
Is that something that is the piercer going to be able to do it pain-free?
Maybe, maybe not. We have the right tools to make this easier for you. But I would ask your piercer. I'm always afraid of stretching people's septums because once you get to that point where it hurts too much, it really hurts. So you need to find a piercer who's going to work with you, has had their septum possibly stretched up, and will go nice and slow. This is a piercing you want to stretch slow with a taper. It's a real gradual thing. And I really focus on feeling resistance and watching reactions because once it hurts too much, you don't want to rip or tear that area. So trust your piercer. Ask them if they're going to slam it through or if it's going to be a nice, slow process. You want the nice, slow process on this.
Elias Larson says, I have a question from a piercer to another.
Absolutely.
I have a dry heat sterilizer that goes to 220 Celsius. How long must I run it for to be safe? I've been using one-time use pliers, but I want to switch now.
You need to get a steam sterilizer. Dry heat can work for some things, but as far as piercing goes, I've never been in a city where they allow dry steam or dry heat sterilizer. It has to be steam because the steam's going to penetrate the bag, and that's kind of what kills everything. The dry heat's
not the same.
Not enough. It's not enough to be a real piercer.
All right. So, and that's
or to sterilize piercings properly, not to be a real piercer. I didn't mean to say that. That came out completely wrong. I'm like, man, I'm a jerk.
Not even a
no,
real
it's
piercer.
not the proper sterilization you need.
Okay. So, and that you're saying that's based on in all the places you've worked, the city would not allow you.
Cities don't allow it. You got to look into your city ordinances, body art codes, and they will say a list of what you need to sterilize things with. Steam sterilizers, you can find used ones starting at around $1,000. You're going to have issues and there's going to be some maintenance with it. You might want to spend a little bit more and that'll work a little better for you. But there's ways to get them. And a pressure cooker's not the same. It needs to maintain the certain proper temperature and pressure for it to work. So,
I mean, obviously it wouldn't be so expensive if it were the same.
Correct.
All right. So unfortunately, it's some bad news for you there, Elias, but
it's better than nothing, but it needs to be done the proper way, and you need a steam sterilizer.
A Fruit says, did you have any issues with your eyebrow piercings? Also, never liked them, but they've grown on me and I've considered them, but I've heard that they never heal. How was your experience with them healing?
It's so funny. That's what we were talking about earlier, how it's like, I never liked them either. And then they just kind of grew on me. And well, these didn't grow on me. I pierced them in there, but yeah, the whole idea actually works. I keep bumping the table. I'm sorry, Jared.
It's all right. We're here.
All right. So my issues with the piercings, yes, they can heal. Mine are over a year now, and I haven't had any real issues. The issues I had in the beginning were because I had all gold and the weight. Once I switched over to the titanium, everything worked out well for me. Now, I've had my eyebrows pierced maybe close to a dozen times on each side. Half of the times they rejected out, and I just took them out and then got them re-pierced, and they worked well. I just changed my look a lot. That's why I took them out for the other reasons. They're great piercings as long as you have the right anatomy for it, but they can heal.
And just keep an eye on them. If they're starting to come out, pull them before they wreck your eyebrow.
Yeah.
Right?
I've known people who've had eyebrow piercings for 15 years. I hope it's healed by 15 years.
Tangent says, hey, I got a second pair of labrettes to make shark bites yesterday.
Sweet.
And this morning, the inside of the lip is all black and bruised. Would you consider that to be normal?
It's not what we want. It's nothing to worry about. There's a lot of veins and capillaries in there, and I have seen bruising on the inside of the lip many, many times. Sometimes if they use a clamp, like some sort of a forceps they put on there, if they put that on too tight, that will break capillaries and cause bruising. Sometimes the needle just hits it, nicks it, and it spreads. So it's nothing to worry about. It will get better real soon. It sure is scary though when you first look at it, like, oh no, it's all black with it. It's like, it's just bruising, no big deal.
It's a little bit of bruising, a little bit of blood. Amber Smith says, hey Scott, love the videos.
Thank you.
And Elias says, love you guys, by the way. Best channel on YouTube. Greetings from Sweden.
Oh, so sweet.
And they appreciate you helping everyone be a better piercer.
I'm doing my best. I mean, all we can do is share the knowledge. I mean, it's out there, and the more we share, the better everyone is. The consumer, the piercer, the shops, society.
So what are the pros and cons of getting your nostrils stretched? You know.
Okay. First con. Serious con. If you like to swim, you can't swim with hollow plugs because water shoots right up your nose. You weren't ready for that one, were you?
Well, that's the biggest
I remember jumping in water and came up coughing. I'm a great swimmer. I was like, what is going on? But silicone plugs when you actually need to. Now, the other con is there's no real repairing this. Once you get to this size, there's no plastic surgery that can really fix it. Cartilage like this is big. I mean, if I took them out, they'll shrink a little bit, but I have permanently altered the shape of my nose. Now, as far as the pros, look at the size jewelry I get to wear on my nose.
And it is a unique look. I think very few people have something that looks just like that. So that's kind of one of the pros there.
Con, it hurts a lot. It's a very painful procedure to get to this size, especially if you're stretching. So it's not a real common thing. That's why you don't.
A good suggestion here from Will, for people don't always know that if you are looking for gold, but you can't deal with the weight, you can always get your titanium anodized into a gold-like color.
Absolutely. Anodizing is a process. I don't think I've done a video on it yet.
No, not yet.
Actually, in our whole truth series, the little cuts, you'll see a point where I'm touching a piece of metal. Is it the placement in jewelry options?
Scott's Thoughts.
Scott's Thoughts. You'll see me touching. You see some bubbles come up, and the jewelry changes color. So we use water and a little electricity, and that's what changes the color of the metal. We can get close to gold, but we can't actually replicate it. If we replicate it, people wouldn't be buying the gold. But I try to get as close as we can. That's a great option. Well, yeah, and there's a couple different colors of gold. Sometimes it's more of a light bronze that looks like an antique gold. Otherwise, you can get a rose gold, which has that coppery type look, or the yellow gold. But honestly, my yellow gold looks more yellow than
that does.
Yeah. Yep.
Amber Smith wants to know, will stretching or going to a bigger gauge fix my small septum piercing? They pierced it very high and sold me the smallest ring possible. And Amber was hoping for something that shows more than this. She feels like what she's wearing now is almost invisible, wants it to be more visible. How's that? What do we change?
Jewelry comes in two different types of sizes. There's gauge and there's diameter. Gauge is the thickness of the metal, which you don't need to stretch to do, but you can buy a larger ring in the same thickness or gauge, and that will make it come down more and you'll be able to show it off more. So
we don't need to gauge or stretch it. We just need a larger ring in
correct,
diameter.
a larger diameter. If it's real small, it's like could be like a 5/16 of an inch, maybe even a 3/8. But they come in many sizes, so it's like pants and shirts.
And some people want it super snug, right? They probably thought they were giving you what you wanted.
They call it a peekaboo, where you barely like kind of could see the jewelry hanging out of your nose. But some people want it to hang down and be seen.
So the goal there, Amber, is that you don't want a larger gauge. You just want a larger diameter. If you say that, they'll be able to give you the right thing.
Yep.
Tough to get the question figured out, but how to do re-piercing nose. So if you were going to re-pierce a nose that was already pierced, how long do we wait?
Sure. I would give it a minimum of a month. And you want the tissue to look as close to normal as possible before you re-pierce it. If there's still a lot of redness or darkness around that area from the scar tissue, get rid of that first, because a lot of times that darkness, the dark skin will stay there with the new piercing, which gives it a shadow, and you can't really get rid of it. As far as re-piercing, find a good quality piercer, and they'll be able to pretty much put it in the same spot or a different spot or different angle for whatever you need. But let it stay out a minimum of a month.
Heal that up. Yep. Annalise Gray says, hey, Scott, are you planning on making the whole truth about the bridal or bridal bar nose piercings? Heard about it in a past live, and I've been obsessed with the look ever since.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah. It'll probably be, we'll do bridal bars and chains.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Annalise.
Add that to the list.
On the list.
The bridal bars are talking about, instead of having a chain, there's like these metal bars, which kind of shape. You can do it over the bridge of the nose, or over the bridge, over the nostrils. There's a lot of different things you can do. And we need to go over different options because there's a lot and people just don't understand what's out there.
That's like the biggest thing is once you explain the options, there's so much more to choose from.
Good call.
Betty Boop fan says hello there. We're glad you could come. Michael Ubler says, you helped me realize I was getting bad training. Thank you, Scott, for helping me along the way on my profession. Without you, I would still be recommending witch hazel, lol.
I'm glad you figured things out. Hopefully you got a better teacher or a better path you can follow so you can continue your journey. Yeah, there's a lot of bad information out there. And just because, someone's confident doesn't mean they're right.
Laura wants to know, what would you say the best style of jewelry to wear in a healed nostril piercing is? I always want to use nostril screws for the convenience of getting them in and out, but I always irritate my nose when I'm trying to work with threadless ends in there, trying to get the threadless top off, end up irritating the nostril piercing.
The best for a healed, if you're changing your jewelry all the time, sometimes nostril screws can work well. If they're adjusted to fit your nose. If you're buying them pre-bent from stores, they're garbage and they don't work. You need to have a quality one bent for the angle and shape of your nose. Now, threadless jewelry is my preference. I put jewelry in and leave it be. I generally don't change it that often. Sometimes you can do threadless jewelry, and there's certain tools you can use which can hold on to the inside and help you change the different tops. Rings are also a fun option as far as clickers or seam rings. I prefer the clickers over the seam rings. That's the ones where they have the hinge and it kind of clicks shut, as opposed to the ones where you have to bend. We are planning on doing a video real soon on how to change, or like how to use those tools properly to change your threadless jewelry, because it is tricky and there's a little tips and tricks, but it'll be coming soon.
All right. Betty Boop fan would like to get a snug piercing, but is it really that bad for healing?
Yeah.
Yeah, just really is that bad.
I mean, if you feel all the other cartilage in your ear, it's the hardest of all the cartilage. It's probably thicker than all the rest. And when you put your ear on a pillow, that's one of the first spots that really kind of hits. So it's a rough heal.
Will wants to know, when stretching, do you think going to a 1 gauge rather than a 0 is the best choice? So in between sizes, is that a thing?
In between sizes is a thing. A lot of times you can get this with glass jewelry. Now, it's funny how you said from a
to a 1 instead of to a 0.
Instead of a 2 to a 0. Mathematically, that's one of the biggest jumps we can do, because most of the time it starts getting in the same incremental jump, but that's the last one of that jump. So if you're not ready and that 0 doesn't want to go in, go to the 1 first. Give it a little time, and then you can go to that size. A proper stretch should not hurt. If it hurts, you're not ready.
Katie Mills says, hi, I love the show.
Hello.
Can all ears stretch? I have small lobes and I want to start, but I'm scared of them tearing. Is that a concern?
Slow and steady wins the race. Once you get to a larger size, they generally don't rip or tear, and a proper stretch doesn't hurt. So you will be able to do it. If you just don't have as much tissue there, you just might not be able to stretch as big, but you totally can do it.
Kayla says, hi, I got a 2G thermal punch on my conch, and I was wondering about how long it would take to heal. I have some bumps on the front of it, and I can't seem to find a lot of information online.
All right. So a biopsy punch or a dermal punch is where they just basically, it's a razor blade in the shape of a circle or a scalpel in the shape of a circle, and they just cut and remove the tissue. Of the ones that I've received, typically they're going to be healed in a couple months. It's going to seem healed fairly quick, but bumps can happen for a while. If you have the bumps, I don't know what kind of jewelry you're wearing, but if it's a metal one with a single flare, sometimes the flares are digging into your skin and you might want to switch over to glass. Sometimes the glass plugs give a little extra room for any swelling. If you're wearing O-rings on there, make sure it's not a latex-based O-ring, because you could have an allergy to that. Yeah, it should be healed up within a couple months though.
And with bumps, just treat them the same way you would treat normal bumps. Just keep the crusties off there.
Keep it clean with a wound wash. Try to wipe off those crusties. Make sure it's not digging in. Maybe emu oil might help calm it down if it is like some nice big bumps on there. Bumps do happen on those biopsy punches though.
So, but no like special rules. Basically the same stuff you do for a regular bump.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we hope that goes away quick for you, Kayla. Bruh says, also, is it normal for a septum piercing to feel uncomfortable when it's flipped up? I have to flip it up for my job, and I swear I can always feel it up there. Do you think we could widen the balls out or something? Is this an adjustment to be made?
Absolutely, yeah. We can totally adjust that jewelry for you. Talk to your piercer if they need an appointment or whatnot, but go in there and we just open it up just a little tiny bit. Sometimes when we adjust them, I kind of flip and make sure it fits properly, but sometimes when you go up, the cartilage gets a little thicker, and even though it fits and gets past that first part of your nose, if it gets up there, it still can pinch. So it should be comfortable. Sometimes when you flip it up, it should feel like kind of like you have a loose booger floating in there for like 5 or 10 minutes, but it shouldn't stay. If it's pinching too much, get it readjusted.
All right. Brandon Kenyon says, I recently got my nostril pierced with a nose screw. How long should I wait before changing to a ring? And what type of ring do you recommend?
Okay. I suggest a minimum of 3 to 4 months before you change to a ring. But before that, I generally suggest having the nostril screw readjusted to fit more snug on your nose after about a month, as long as it feels and looks good. If you leave the nostril screw long, it's going to be moving around, and it would take even longer before you can wear the ring. If you put the ring in too soon, you're going to get the bumps, and they're tough to get rid of.
Thank you to Terry Enby for the donation. Says, thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate that.
And we just got a question from Joya Davida, who also donated $5. Thank you very much. You're awesome. I want paired nostrils and high nostrils. Is it a bad idea to get both now right at the same time? Thank you. I love the show.
It's not terrible. If you're not healing anything up, you could do it. Personally, I would start with just the high nostrils first, or the regular nostrils, and then kind of go in and do the other ones. If it was up to me, I would rather start with the high nostrils first and then match up the nostrils afterwards. Talk to your piercer, see what they're comfortable with. I don't like to have more than like 4 to 5 piercings healing at once, but that's a lot of swelling. And by the time you get things going, the angles can kind of change a little bit too. It doesn't take long for the swelling to kick in, but that's what I would suggest.
Absolutely. Yeah. Back on the subject of martial arts and piercings, Vicious 4 was saying they do jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, and wants to know if a tongue would still be an option. They are in the gym weekly. So I think tongue would be one of the few that really did work pretty well.
I haven't worn a mouth guard in a long, long time. I did when I was in football. I don't think it could possibly interfere with it.
So
it wouldn't?
It worked with mine.
Yeah.
It did? Okay.
Yeah. Heather had a tongue piercing and did jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai also. And
so yeah, if you're wearing the mouth guard, it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, that is a good point though. Do check with your mouth guard, because I know most people wear like a really tight single, which definitely wouldn't get in the way. But I actually like a big double that has breathing holes in the front, and that could actually interfere with a tongue piercing. So depending on the mouth guard you wear, you'll want to check that out.
Yep.
Are there any concerns with piercings when going to a gym, like a weightlifting gym, that you can think of?
The only thing I'm going to say right now is there's a lot of sweat at a gym. And if you have a fresh piercing within a month or so, it's technically an open wound. And if all that sweat and germs are getting in there, that's a problem. So like if you have a fresh belly button piercing laying on mats, like maybe doing push-ups or like belly touching, that would be bad. And you want to find a way, like a taxiderm patch, to try to protect it. Another possibility or issue would be nipple piercings and lifting.
And
if the bar is coming down, not necessarily, I mean, I'm sure you have a shirt on and it wouldn't be the germs, but if you're hitting it, you could be bumping it and putting crusties to the inside. What I recommend to everyone is clean your piercing right before you work out to get all the crusties off. So if there's movement, the crusties won't scratch and irritate the same way it would if you had a bunch of crusties on there.
Yeah, because there are definitely movements that you might scrape with the bar, like a clean and jerk. You probably be lifting the bar up across your chest.
Exactly. Oh, and no swimming for a minimum of a month, depending on how your piercing's healing. And then also, if you do need to go swimming, taxiderm patches or waterproof band-aids should help.
Christine Kroll says, how long does it take on average for the swelling to go down on a snug piercing? I've had mine for 3 months now, and it's not red, and it doesn't have any bumps or hurt, but it's just so really swollen. Yeah.
Yep. Rooks and snugs both stay swollen for most of the healing process. The thing is once the swelling goes down enough where there's enough bar sticking out at this point, you might want to downsize to a shorter bar. But like I said, we gave room for the swelling, and you kind of compare this snug to this snug, and it's like, it's going to be twice the size for quite a while.
So that's just one that stays swollen.
It stays swollen for a while. Yep.
Robin Allison says, how do I remove my septum as it won't come out? So if we have a stuck septum, what could that be?
There's so many questions here. What kind of jewelry are we dealing with? Is this a circular barbell, a captive bead ring, a clicker, a hinge ring? I don't know.
You have to understand the jewelry to be able to open it.
Now, if it's a circular barbell, like it has the 2 beads on there, like you have to unscrew one of those beads. That's how that's going to work. If you use any sort of tool, you have to put tape on there so it doesn't scratch the jewelry. If you have access to like latex or nitrile gloves, you get a better grip and it's easier to unscrew it.
That's a good tip right there. People don't realize.
Yeah.
You try pinching your hardest with your regular fingers. Sometimes putting a rubber glove on is that little bit of
because
friction.
we end up pinching so hard because it can twist in our hands. If we have a good grip, it just twists. That's the difference.
You don't waste your strength smashing it.
If it's a captive bead ring where there's a single bead in there, the ring is pinching on that bead. It's held in by pressure. You have to hold on to the ring and pop it out. If it's a ring where there's no seam or gap, it's either a hinge where you got to find the hinge and pop it open or twist it to the side. If you're having that many problems, you can't figure it out, you might need to go to your piercer.
Right. Sebda says, hey, hope you're both doing well today as usual.
Really swell. Thank you very much. And I hope everyone here is doing well. And again, just a quick reminder, hit that like if you're doing well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sebda. Good to see you too. Skywatcher wants a dimple piercing. Is there any kind of a problem with infections?
Infection is always a concern with any piercing. Piercings are open wounds. If you're touching with dirty hands, infections can happen. As far as being more chance for infections as far as other piercings, not necessarily. Just keep your hands off your piercing and everything should be fine.
Trash Mammal seconding the fact that it hurts when you stretch a septum. So go slow. Is really
slow. The stories I hear when piercers like, I just slam that through there. And it's like, it rips and the damage is done. You can see that shiver. It hurts so much. So find a gentle piercer for stretching your septum. Whew.
Louisa Kempif wants to know if a rook is harder to heal than a doth.
I think that has to do with, I'm going to say no. Unless you're wearing earphones, earbuds, stethoscopes, things that go in your ear, then it's going to interfere with the doth. If you got pierced with a curved barbell at the right angle, they're generally pretty well protected and shouldn't be that bad to heal up.
What are your thoughts on teenagers with stretched piercings? Will's a 16-year-old with 4 stretched lobes, and the bigger one's a 2 and the smaller is an 8. What do you think? Is this something you have an opinion about?
I do have an opinion, and you need to be careful. You can stretch things out and have fun with that, but once you go too far to kind of like the kind of point of no return, you'd have to have operations to have that fixed. The thing is if you don't know what you're doing, that could prevent you from getting a job. So I say be smart about it. Think about this. Think about your future and make sure it's the right thing to do. At my shop, I don't stretch anyone past a 00. That's the biggest tapers I carry in my shop. And that's probably the biggest I would ever want anyone under 18 to really go unless you truly knew what you were doing.
Now you sell things larger than that, right? Don't the bigger than 00, right?
In taper wise?
Yeah. Well,
yes.
I mean, just like, so it almost sounds like you're saying you don't recommend going any larger than a 00, but you do sell a lot of jewelry bigger than that, right?
We do, but don't for anyone under 18.
Okay.
Because if you don't know what you're doing for a job, I mean, times are changing, but I mean, if there's the option between some of the big stretch shears and non-stretch shears for that $1 million an hour, $1 million job a year, it's like they might take the more professional looking person. So that's what you need to keep in mind. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying give yourself options.
Right. And be careful about anything that might limit your options.
Yeah. And that goes with anyone, even someone who's like 22, 23 years old. If you don't know what you were doing, tattooing unemployable across the top of your forehead's not the best idea, as far as trying to get a job.
And Terry, sorry I missed that you had this question here attached to that donation. I apologize. My next piercing plan is for eyebrows, again, but at a different point. Should I wait longer for my septum to heal? It's 2 months old now and feels totally healed and good.
You're good. Septums, if it's done properly, should be healed up in about 6 to 8 weeks. So you're probably healed up enough to where the eyebrows won't be an issue.
And we have another donation from Luna de Blue. Thank you very much. Donated $5. Jumps your question right to the top. Said, hi, I heard that using rings to a vertical labret. Is that true? Also, is this the best piercing if you don't want to damage your teeth or gums? So what are your thoughts on rings and a vertical labret?
It doesn't work. Okay. If you want to wear a ring in your lip, it needs to go straight through so the ring can go all the way around your lip. Now, if you're doing a vertical labret, you're only getting most of the ring will be on the outside of your lip and nothing will be on the inside. You're not going to damage your teeth, but you're not going to be able to find a ring to fit properly, because most people who wear rings on their lips want it to be closer or snug to the, it's going to stick way out. So if you do a vertical labret, you get it done with a curved barbell, and that's about your only real jewelry option. You can change beads, but you wouldn't be able to wear a ring. If you want to wear a normal lip piercing, then you can wear the ring in there.
Now, say we were abandoning the ring and we were just talking about vertical labret. Is that the best piercing in the oral area to not damage teeth, would you say?
Yeah, a vertical labret, depending on whether it's upper, like a gesturum, or a lower, normal vertical labret. You can do like angel fangs. So, I mean, there's lots of options all the way around, but any metal that goes inside your mouth, you can bite down and chip your teeth, do gum damage. A lot of options as far as that goes. So that's going to be your best bet. And even piercings like under the tongue, where the tongue web, if a bead came loose or the jewelry came out, you could chomp down and still chip your teeth. So that's why the vertical labret is the best as far as the oral options, as far as not damaging your teeth.
Elias, the piercer we talked to earlier, is a little bummed out that a dry heater doesn't quite work.
I'm sorry.
And was told by another piercer that that's what they use. So that was why they originally chose
Well, they're
that.
probably not lying. They're probably using that, but there's not a lot of good education out there. But look at the difference. Go online, type in dry heat sterilizer versus steam sterilizer, and you will see the difference. There's other sterilizers too, like chemical sterilizers, light sterilizers, but you as a piercer need a steam sterilizer.
That's just what's industry accepted.
Yep.
All right. Sorry to be the deliverers of bad news, Elias.
But we want you doing it the right way.
Absolutely. It's it. Alex Lynn says, hey guys, do you think multiple venom piercings on a split tongue would pose a more significant risk of tooth damage than piercings on an unaltered tongue? So are you worried about biting the piercings?
Piercings have definitely gotten interesting, or questions have gotten interesting here. This is awesome. Okay, so what we're talking about here is they split their tongue, so you have kind of a forked tongue, and doing piercings through each side, which I've seen done. Now they're asking if you get 2 piercings through each side, if it increases the risk of tooth damage. Probably. If you get the right size jewelry and you don't play with it, it probably won't be a problem. But the fact that your tongue is got, I don't have a forked tongue, so I can't truly answer that. My other piercer, who's not here today because we're closed here today, does have a split tongue. I'm going to ask her that question, and I'll try to get back next week. But I would say the risk is probably up a little bit, but if you wear the right jewelry, you should be fine.
Because, I mean, I don't feel like the biggest problem is you biting it while it's still in your tongue, right? I believe you've explained that the biggest problem is
it rubs up against your gums while you're...
And if a bead came loose, correct, and you bit down on it. So I guess in that sense, if you have more beads in your mouth, you're increasing the chance that you accidentally...
Well, the way I'm looking at it now is normally a tongue piercing is kind of stationary, but with a split tongue, does it naturally sit more open, and is the bar pushed closer to your gums and your teeth?
That's an interesting question.
I got to look into that one.
We'll look into it.
Excellent question.
Great
Tune
question.
in to the next live chat. We'll be able to answer that
for you, Alex. Ace Who is a piercer out in Michigan.
Sweet.
And currently tells their clients not to use Q-tips to clean their piercings because those fibers get all locked.
Mm-hmm.
Gets a lot of backlash from the community out there. Is Ace Who in the right, or what do you think? What's your stance on
You
Q-tips?
are in the right. I say the exact same thing. The cotton fibers can leave the residue, turn into a little bacteria trap, and they're tough to get out. No one wants a fuzzy gem. We're helping them. There's always going to be other piercers who are going to judge what you're saying. If you're doing things right and on the better, it's going to fire more of the bad piercers because you're making them look bad. Well, they need to step up and do the right thing.
Right. Q-tips are cheap. But
I saw a piercer meme not too long ago. And it says, true success of a piercer is how many other piercers in the community hate them. Because there's more bad piercers than there are good ones. So stay on the good side.
Christine Kroll says, thank you for sharing your knowledge. This channel has encouraged me and reassured me to get multiple piercings from my bucket list.
I love that. Thank you for being a part of our community.
Will recently saw a triple rook on a piercer's social media, all done at once. I can't imagine the swelling.
Ooh, it would probably be pretty intense, but I have seen people with enough of a ridge where it's like people have different anatomy, and it's like, say sometimes things are anatomy dependent. That person's probably 1 in 1,000 who could get it done and they wanted it. So props to both the piercer and the piercee who got that done, and I hope it does heal well for you because it will swell a lot.
Agalos Macris says, hello, which are better, cannula or hollow needles?
Well, technically they're both hollow needles, but cannula is where you pierce and you pull the needle out and it leaves the tube behind.
A tube of like plastic?
Tube of plastic, medical tubing. I don't use cannula needles. I'm here in America where we use the single-use hypodermic needles. I don't know which one's truly better. I'm doing a needle video and that will come out and that might be able to give some better results. I'm not 100% sure though.
And Neva Leona says, happy to see you. And we are happy to see you.
Thank you.
Shundlin L says, hi, I'll be in Las Vegas for New Year's. Is your piercing shop going to be open on December 31st?
I think we close half day on that day on New Year's Eve. So
okay,
yeah.
So there might be some morning appointments you can get.
Some morning
and the shop
appointments.
is appointment only, so make sure you get that in advance.
And I believe we're closed New Year's Day too, so there's a day and a half we're closed.
A very interesting question from Isabella H. Can holding the phone up to your ear cause irritation bumps?
Yes, and it can also cause infections.
Oh, because your phone's dirty.
How many of us really clean our phones? I'm glad you brought this up. Yeah, number one, if you're bumping, hitting things, I mean, it's the same thing as like sleeping on it wrong. So you got to be careful about that. But you need to clean up phones, especially public phones. The other people have piercings. You know, other people have issues. You know, all those germs are now going into that piercing. So you got to be careful about the phones. Make sure they're clean and try not to irritate. If it hurts, you're doing damage.
Kathy Clayton asks, can you show exactly how to measure a plug on a gauge wheel? I appreciate it if you can. What was a gauge wheel and what do we mean exactly? And then
Jared,
you can run and grab
entertain them for a second.
All right. So I know they made fun of me already. So yeah, we will go ahead and I can ask him questions. Crystal B says, I really enjoy these live Q&As and also I love your vids. So thank you, Crystal. We're glad that you could be here.
Yes.
Let's jump back over to Scott.
All right. So I got a couple gauge wheels here. These are what gauge wheels are. These are wire gauge wheels. And it can be kind of confusing. Now, personally, these can kind of work. The plastic ones, I don't like them. They're not as accurate as these metal ones. And the metal ones, the ones I like, are slightly thicker. They're maybe 1/16 of an inch thick. The paper thin ones, if I remember right, they weren't quite as accurate. Now, when you look at these, there's a hole on the inside which looks round like the plug. That's not the area we're looking at. We're looking at the area right on top. I should probably point to the bigger hole. You see how, can we zoom in a little bit here? Yeah. Okay, so the very top up here is where we're measuring. We're not putting the plug on the inside. Now, also, the plugs, if it's a flare, like a saddle plug, you got to measure the skinniest part because that's the wearing surface. So if the skinniest part falls into the zero and it's snug at the very top, that means it's a 0 gauge. Now, these wire wheels also have metric measurements on the back, and they also have in-between sizes. So keep that in mind, like a 0 gauge, 1 gauge, 2 gauge, 3, 4, and so forth.
So it's not the round part deep inside there. It's the actual edge that as it passes down through.
Now, if I was looking at my straw here, it would be
perfect demonstration.
That's technically a
turn it 90 towards us.
A 1 gauge.
Go.
See how that fits in there? It doesn't have to go in here. This is too loose. That's not what we're measuring. It's the wearing surface up at the top.
All right.
Yes.
So there you go. I believe that's exactly what you wanted, Kathy.
I need to clean off that wire, guys. Put tongue. Ugh.
Bruh says, you're the best, calming all my irrational worries about my piercings.
Yes.
And Amber Smith says, thank you so much for answering my question. You are the sweetest person I've ever met. I would love to come to Vegas to get pierced by you. Have a great day, fellas.
Thank you. It would be an honor if you came here and let me pierce you. I would love to pierce all of you guys.
The apprentice at the shop Will goes to just got a double snug recently. It looks pretty rough.
Yep. It's sometimes you say that's the price you pay for beauty, but sometimes that price is a little bit more than other piercings.
Is it possible to stretch your lobes at home? And if so, what's the proper method to do it? Do you need anything special?
You don't need anything special, especially when you're starting, other than just the next size up jewelry, or you can start kind of like stacking. What that means is if you have like hoops or something, if you can put like 2 hoops through the same hole, that naturally stretches it out. And you're trying to slowly get a little bit bigger. Pain should never be a factor. So if it hurts, you're overdoing it, and you should only go up one size at a time every month and a half to 2 months. So if you have jewelry in there and you kind of pull down your jewelry, if you can almost see light through it or there's a little gap, you might be ready to go to the next size.
Time to go up.
Yep.
Skittles1226 says, when can you stop with the twice daily saline solution soaks and just leave it alone? When does that time come?
When your piercing's healed and you're mostly done with the crusties. The only exception that where crusties last way longer are going to be nipple piercings. But I would suggest that you get a wound wash spray and not use sterile saline to soak. When we say the spray, like you just do a quick squirt onto your piercing, let the solution sit on there, and then you can wipe off crusties. If you're actually pouring saline into a cup and you're actually soaking your piercing that way, the cup is not as clean as that sterile saline, so you just contaminated the sterile saline, if that makes any sense. Generally, the wound wash spray, wipe it off, and it should only take a minute or two.
We are running out of time, so we're just going to get a few more questions in before we go. Chase Jones asks, after the initial somewhat extreme pain of a PA piercing, what is the pain level with the healing and cleaning process? I was thinking of getting one done.
The extreme level of, it's not an extreme level of pain physically, but it is mentally. It's a game you got to get over. The awkward part is the receiving tube that goes down the urethra to catch the needle. It just needs to go to the back of the head, but it's like a real quick, sharp pinch. It's like someone flicking in the ear. You're going to be like, ow.
Oh, the ear.
And it's over with. Okay. So that's generally how this goes. Afterwards, it's generally not painful unless crusties are pulled inside, because you generally get a curved barbell or a ring. And if the crusties get pulled inside, you'll feel it. And that means you just need to clean your piercing. It's only going to be healed. It's only going to take maybe a month, 2 months max to heal that piercing up. Sometimes it seems even faster than that.
Arthur Morgan asks, would it be wise to get a piercing, for example, an eyebrow while you're growing? Like, will it affect the piercing? It's an interesting point. If you were to pierce, say, someone who's young and their face and
Absolutely.
head isn't full size yet.
I mean, part of the reason why I minimize the age 16 for most of my piercings is because of this. If you got a belly button piercing when you're 12 years old, you have a lot of growing to go. That hole may become permanent and you may grow to the point where it looks a little crooked or too deep. There's a lot of factors involved. Same thing with piercing babies. If you pierce a baby's earlobes, they may be centered and perfectly straight, but as they're growing so quickly, they could grow crooked. So it is a factor. Generally, I suggest waiting until you're at least 16 to get pierced for body piercings. And then, that's my opinion on that. Good question.
Because it does. The dimensions would change. The thickness of your eyebrow changes. The bar doesn't grow with you. So, Crystal B, about the Q-tips.
Yes.
So how do you get the crusties off without using your fingers then? If a wet Q-tip
suggest paper towels or a piece of gauze. Sometimes you can take a paper towel and just kind of fold it up, and that'll just kind of wipe off the crusties nice and easy, and it doesn't leave the residue. If you're using any sort of gauze, like medical gauze, it has to be the non-woven where it looks more like a blanket instead of all the fibers interlacing with each other, because that can leave those fibers behind too. That's what we're trying to do, is we're not trying to leave the cotton residue behind. So paper towels, napkins work really well.
Couple more quick ones because they're easy to hit. Bra has septum funk problems that come and go even years after it's healed. What can we do?
I have a video on that, but I'll save you the little time here. Natural cooking oil, vegetable oil, olive oil, peanut oil, rub a little bit into the jewelry, and that should cover up the mask. Should mask it up and cover up that smell. Sometimes just soap and water, just make sure the jewelry's actually clean. So, but yeah, that oil's the answer.
And I'm sorry if I missed anyone's question at the end here. We just are out of time, but we'll end it on an interesting note. Yes. Luna de Blue says, do you think the older you get, the harder it is to heal new piercings? I'm in my 50s. What do you think?
Medium. Yes, the older you get, that does take a little bit longer. There's a little bit more involved, but at the same time, with age comes wisdom, and we're a little bit nicer to our piercings than younger people are. And then another factor is the more piercings you get and tattoos you get. I saw an article a while ago how that is actually boosting up our immune system because we're exercising our immune system, so we're able to heal more things in general, and our immune system gets stronger. So that could be a good thing for you too. Well, that winds it all up today. If you're not subscribed, definitely hit that subscribe button. Hit the like, and of course, keep putting holes in your body. See you on the next video.